Alrighty, it is 11 on the dot. Thank you all so much for joining our Old Bills Marketing Workshop. This is the first time we've ever hosted this fabulous marketing workshop. We're really excited to be able to provide some more in-depth marketing information to you and all your organizations. I know folks are still joining, so we'll just hang out here for a couple more minute or two, just to let folks join in, and then I will kick things off. As you join, please add your name and your organization in the chat, and we'll get things started quickly. Everyone should have their Zooms on mute, which it looks like everybody does, and we'll have time at the end for a Q&A. And thank you all for introducing yourself. Katie, good to see you. Julie, thanks for joining. Myra, Betsy, great to see you all. Soames, so good to see you. Welcome. Kelly, how's it going? Hi, Carolyn. Thank you for joining. All righty, why don't we go ahead and kick things off? My name, I know we'll have folks joining here, so please keep introducing yourselves in the chat and with your name and your organization. It's so great to see you all. We're really excited to host this first nonprofit marketing workshop for Old Bills participating organizations. This idea came about because we had so many different questions throughout the giving season over the last 30 years, and we wanted to be able to provide a workshop where people could ask and answer a couple more in-depth questions around Old Bills and marketing, do's, don'ts, and then we also would love to give a deep dive into what an Old Bills campaign could look like for you and your organization. First and foremost, I would love to introduce my colleagues, Zuri and Anne, who are here. Anne is our Chief Marketing Officer. Zuri is our Marketing Associate. They are both working on our own Old Bills marketing campaign and are here today to share their insights on things that have worked really well for nonprofits during the Old Bills giving season, things that maybe haven't worked that well, and then give their sage advice on what might work well for you and your organization. Today, we'd love for you to leave with a simple, actionable marketing plan. And please know that this meeting is recorded. So if any of your colleagues weren't able to make it and they would like to watch this later, they are more than welcome to. It'll probably take us a few days to get this information up. But we'll put it on our website, and we'll also send it out in our nonprofit newsletter. We'll also attach these slide decks to the next nonprofit newsletter email. If you don't know what I'm talking about related to the nonprofit newsletter, please be in touch with me. All contacts who were associated with your Old Bills application as additional contacts, primary contacts, financial contacts, executive directors, etc., have been added to our Old Bills nonprofit newsletter, and you should be receiving that in your inbox every Wednesday from now until the end of the giving season. So that'll have your most helpful information related to all things Old Bills. So if you're not receiving that, please email me separately and I'll make sure to add you to that email. And we also see that sometimes it lands in folks' junk or spam. So please make sure to make communityfoundation.org or at cfjacksonhole.org a safe sender in your inbox. I am going to go ahead and pass this off to Anne Bradley, our Chief Marketing Officer, who will kick things off for us. Thanks, Anne.
Thanks, Maeve, and welcome everybody. It is so great to see such an awesome turnout for this today. Like Maeve said, we get a lot of questions throughout the giving season every year around how to best market your nonprofit, storytelling, organizations wanting to be sure that they abide by the rules. And at the end of the day, no matter the size of your organization, we feel like every action that you take to communicate during Old Bills makes a difference. So I hope that you all find this helpful, and feel free to share feedback with us at the end. So starting at the top, every step counts. If you're looking to do old bills for the first time, if you're new on staff, or if you've been doing this for a long time, we hope that you'll be able to glean some tips and tricks and hopefully come up with a really strong plan for your organization as you prepare for old bills. Um, the Community Foundation has worked really hard to build out a robust advertising plan as well as tools that nonprofits can use. So you should be getting emails from Maeve on a weekly basis. And today's email that went out this morning has a nonprofit toolkit linked in it. Take a look at that after this webinar and take a look at the resources available there. We provide photos, we have our entire logo library, we have sample social media posts. There's just a ton in that. So definitely take time to familiarize yourself with that and let us know if you have any questions. On this first slide, all we want you to take away is that there are lots of opportunities to engage with the Community Foundation and with our hashtag, which this year is Old Bills 2026. If you're on social media. If you're not on social media, that's okay. I'm always happy to help an organization create a social media presence if you're interested in that. But just know if you're not on social media, there's a lot of other things you can do. We will be producing yard signs again this year, and those will be available at our office starting on the first day of the giving season, August 14th, on a first come, first serve basis. And as always, we'll be doing a very thorough print and digital ad campaign that is across all of the local media channels. We are still producing a number of resources. It's quite early still, so check back onto that nonprofit toolkit on a regular basis as we'll be uploading more graphics and things in the next couple of weeks. Next slide, please. So just a brief overview of our brand guidelines. If you're new to Old Bills, what you see on the screen is our standard primary logo. We also have a pretty detailed brand guideline that we want everybody to abide by, and hopefully it'll provide clarity on how you can use the Old Bills logo along with your organization's logo throughout the giving season. The logos are available for download. If you go to the nonprofits page on the Old Bills website, they're the same logos as last year, same logos as the year before. But if you want the files again, if you're new or just need access to those files, you can find them within that nonprofit toolkit on our website. Next slide, please. So on the top is the primary logo. That is what we call, I like to refer to it as the blob logo, but that's our primary logo. You're welcome to use either of these logos in your materials now that you've been approved for Old Bills. Some people like to, wait until the giving season starts, but if for some reason, if you want to go ahead and put it on your website or you're working on a newsletter or something like that, you're totally fine to go ahead and start using either of these logos now. We encourage you to use the logo throughout the giving season and just ask that you really abide by the rules detailed in the brand guidelines. Logo integrity is very important to us as a 30-year-old brand, and we hope that you will use it in all the appropriate ways. This next slide, you can see logo etiquette. It's just, we ask that you not make it too small or stretch it out or recolor it or decouple it from the colorful blobs. It just allows us to have consistency, and that's quite important to us as an organization. If you are an organization that sells things or maybe has a for-profit arm, we just ask that you not use the Old Bills logo on anything that's going to be sold or for any for-profit services that your organization might offer. If you also are an organization that fundraises for religious and political activity as well as non-political and non-religious activity, make sure that Old Bills and the Old Bills brand is only affiliated with the non-political and non-religious sides of your work. So when you're referring to old bills, you can use any of these references. We ask that you just don't use acronyms. Um, Old Bills has been around for a long time, and I think a lot of people are just super familiar with it and might want to shorten it. We have shortened it considerably throughout the years. It was originally Old Bills Fun Run for charities, as you may remember, but we prefer Old Bills 2026, Old Bills Fun Run, or Old Bills Fun Run 2026. Next slide, please. So you may or may not know, but this is the 30th anniversary of Old Bills. And even though Old Bills has been around for a long time, we still encourage really consistent messaging when you're talking about Old Bills. As an organization, this is something we spend a lot of energy on, trying to make sure that the whole community understands what Old Bills is about, and we need the nonprofits' help with messaging. This is a really complex fundraising effort. We have being recorded. If you don't mind muting, that would be great. Sorry about that. This is a really complex fundraising effort. We have over 4,000 donors that make 25,000 designated gifts during the giving season. And using the language above is just a way to get clear about how Old Bills works. We encourage you to tell your donors that they can give to more than one organization through Old Bills. They can make multiple gifts, they can support multiple nonprofits with one gift. And 100% of the gift that your donor gives to your organization stays with your organization. The, the magic of Old Bills is that there's an eligibility component. When nonprofits are approved to participate in Old Bills, they have the ability to get a partial matching grant from the Community Foundation. That's made possible through the co-challengers. So you won't know what the actual matching amount will be until the awards party in October. So it's really important that you just communicate that it's a partial matching grant. And that's why we want people to give through Old Bills, is to amplify their gifts. Donations have to be made to the Community Foundation of Jackson Hole in order to be eligible for that partial matching grant. And we just want you to articulate that to your donors wherever you can. All of this can be found in our rules and procedures as well, just to reference. But we really do appreciate the nonprofits' help through this consistent messaging. So today you all received an email from Maeve, the Old Bills newsletter, that had a link in it to the Old Bills Community Minute. I haven't looked to see if there are still any slots available. These typically go really quickly, but I thought I would just share what the Community Minute is all about. It's basically a public service announcement for Old Bills nonprofits that is paid for by the Community Foundation. So we sent out a link today. You can sign up to record a spot. These will be run on KHOL, and they're run throughout the giving season. It's a 1 minute spot where your nonprofit sends a representative into the KHOL studio. They record a little blurb, and it's 1 minute or less. And if you've done one of these in the past, we will just rerun your segment unless you ask us not to. If you're not sure if you've run one in the past, just send me an email afterwards, and I'm happy to connect you with KHOL, and they can let you know whether or not we have one on file for you. If all the slots fill up, we will start a wait list, and we'll do our best to accommodate overflow of new organizations that want to participate. This is our 4th year, I believe, in doing this, and it's a wonderful way just to get some airtime on KHOL about your organization. And we just love this partnership. All right, next slide, please. All right, we're just going to take a little pause and ask everybody to type in the chat your nonprofit name and then A one sentence description of what your organization does. We're going to be coming back to these responses in a few minutes, but just take a minute, type your nonprofit name, and then a one sentence description of what your organization does. And I'll give everybody just a few seconds to do that. You're not going to be graded on this. It's just a fun little exercise.
Thanks, Anne. As you all are doing this fabulous activity, just to know, I'll continue linking the nonprofit toolkit in the chat, but it has been linked in the chat just for ease of access for you all. And all the documents that Anne was referring to are in there, including that social media copy several of you asked about.
All right. Well, we will keep moving. Maeve, if you don't mind advancing to the next slide, please. So, marketing through old bills is not just about asking for money. It's about sharing stories, celebrating your organization's impact, and keeping donors connected so that they can continue to give year after year. Remember to stay in touch with donors who gave to your organization last year, either through old bills or outside of old bills. Um, the Community Foundation offers a report of past supporters that can be accessed through the Old Bills Contribution Activity Portal. I'm not going to go into detail on that today, but just know if you're new to Old Bills and you're like, I don't know who gave to us last year, I just wanted to mention that that data is available to you. And we're going to be doing a workshop, finance focused workshop on July 28th. So we hope you'll come back for that and learn a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of the financial reporting side of Old Bills. But during Old Bills, every nonprofit is fundraising at the same time. There's 200 plus organizations, but it's not an in-sum game. It's not a competition. So what we've learned over the years is that success is going to be different for every organization. But at the end of the day, being clear and compelling is going to get you far. We encourage you to lead with impact. Don't lead with just support us. Donors want to know what their gift accomplishes. Focus on the outcomes and the community impact of your work rather than just your organizational needs. Try telling one memorable story, an authentic story about a person, a family, an animal, or a community outcome is so much more powerful than a long list of programs and statistics. Make the match matter. Consistently remind donors that their contribution goes further during old bills because of the incentive of the matching grant pool. Tap into your supporters as ambassadors, your board members, your volunteers, your staff, your participants can extend your reach even farther beyond your organization's own marketing channels. Especially in Jackson, word of mouth is incredibly powerful. I encourage you to prioritize existing relationships. Your previous donors, as I mentioned before, volunteers, engaged supporters are the most likely to give again and again and help spread the message about your nonprofit. You might try creating a consistent campaign theme. A theme can create a core message that you can use across your different channels, across social media, during events, and in your personal outreach. Emphasize authenticity. When you're telling real stories and testimonials and simple videos that you've created on your iPhone, those are going to resonate just as much, if not more, than a polished marketing piece or production. You can do a lot with a little, especially during old bills. So don't be afraid to try something new. And build momentum. We're going to talk more about this in a few minutes, but remember to build momentum throughout the giving season. And that is just creating this uh, ongoing thread of content that starts really as soon as you want to, but I would say starts, August 14th and really continues all the way through. And don't forget to thank your donors. They love being thanked. Even if they say, don't send us a thank you note, you can still send a broad thank you, right? You could say thank you to everyone that's already donated in an email newsletter or in person at an event. Gratitude is one of the most effective marketing tools. Next slide, please. Consistency really matters. It matters more than perfection. It matters more than having a shiny thing to push out into the world. Having a consistent message over the course of the 5-week giving season is going to take you far. So start planning early and build out a timeline for your organization to keep everyone on track. Remind your donors to give early. We love early donations. It takes a lot of time to process, the 25,000 designations that we get through old bills. So any early gifts are always appreciated. Now I'm going to hand it off to Zuri, who's going to share some tips and examples of what a marketing plan might look like for your organization.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Anne. When building a campaign, I like to let the calendar guide me. Typically, when you look at the bigger picture, it can be daunting, but those dates can serve as key milestones that can help you reach that bigger goal. And in this case, our goal is to promote philanthropy during the giving season. And this can take so many forms, as Anna already mentioned. It could be volunteering, it could be running, donating, or even just spreading the word. And these key dates and events can serve as natural touch points to communicate with your different audiences. And I encourage you to use these dates as excuses to create content and engage with donors and community members, the launch party, the regatta, run day, that deadline, and then the final week push. They can all be milestones towards that bigger goal. Next slide, please. Thank you, Maeve. Perfect. Now we'll go back to the chat, and we'll go back to that initial message that you put in the chat, and we're going to clarify that core message. You can't really start a marketing campaign without knowing who you are, what you do, and why it matters, and what people should do next. So, yeah, in the chat, we can do just a couple of minutes so you can think about all of those things. Yeah, and we can refine live as well. Yeah, something that I think might be helpful is thinking about someone who encounters your organization for the first time. How can they quickly understand who you are and what makes you different? Yeah, and once again, it's not graded. It doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah, we have Okano's Gift, offering nutritious, easy to prepare meals that are locally sourced and organic wherever possible to those that are struggling with food insecurity. That is so good.
Zuri, what about an action that you might want people to take next?
Yeah. Ooh, that is a great question. You could tie it in with a specific volunteering event, or yeah, if there is a volunteering event or an event that's happening in the community, I would include that as well. And do you have any any additional input or ideas?
I think for some organizations, your old Bill's message is also your message, maybe your one sentence that you put down in the first chat. So it's okay if it's the same, is the one thing that comes to
Mhm.
mind for me. But I would say if your core message is trying to not just be your mission statement, if you want it to be something that's a bit more compelling, really reaching people where they are. If your organization is offering summer camps, like how is your summer camp different than maybe another camp? Or what might compel um, your target audience to sign their child up for your camp other over another one? Think about what your differentiating factors might be too. And as far as a call to action, I think a lot of times it is donate, but as we'll get into in a little bit, there's some other call to actions that I think really
Mhm.
will resonate with folks too, and create some engagement other than just donate.
We have
Yes,
a great
absolutely.
example in the chat here from Eleanor with Teton Science Schools saying their core message is your donation gives students direct access to place-based education and opportunities to explore their public lands through STEM-based programs. We serve students of all ages, and with our new initiative, Every Kid in Wyoming, we are focused on increasing our community's access to Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Parks. Give today and stop by for a tour of TSS. It's an awesome way to
Mhm.
bring donors in and get them engaged with your organization by providing that donate today, but also an opportunity to get to know you and your organization a little bit better. So that's one example. That's something to take forward as you keep planning. Thanks, Eleanor.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Wonderful. Yeah, I think we can move ahead if that's all right. Let's do it. Yay. Yeah, we love Coombs too. So fun. Okay, great. On to the next one. What actually works? Once you have this core message defined, um, you can put it out into the world, and that may take many different forms. And sometimes things can get a little tricky when it comes to identifying what actually works. What we have found, and our team continues to test different approaches, and things are constantly changing when it comes to social media and algorithms. And there are some that remain more consistent. But for the most part, these are the common threads that we have found. People really connect with other people, and when possible, featuring these real people interacting with your organization and your mission, that really moves others. And you typically, at least we typically, see more engagement when we post pictures of people rather than just a flyer. This could be someone sharing their experience as a volunteer, a donor talking about why they give, or a participant at an event, or simply someone spreading the word around town. It can be very many different formats. We've also found that simple videos often perform much better than polished productions, which is great when budgets are tight and timelines are tight. And once again, I think it goes back to audiences seeking that human connection and authenticity, as Anne mentioned. And yeah, just a reminder, I think for everyone, for myself, don't let the pursuit of perfection prevent you from sharing your story and spreading that joy. Um, and then we've also found that clear asks rather than implied asks work best. Rather than keeping your audience guessing, it's much easier to make people just understand the next step. And that way they're able to take action or more likely to take action. Yeah, creative ideas really can capture attention, but clarity ultimately drives action. And these are things that I am constantly reminding myself of. Wonderful. We can go on to the next slide.
We have a question in the chat
Mhm.
asking if we can provide a clear example of a clear versus implied ask.
Yeah. Ooh, I think clarity, like I always love to provide the exact date, the exact time. I love to include the link then and there when it comes to social media, just to make it as easy for the person on the other side. Sometimes also during press releases or when writing captions or writing emails. I know this happened recently with a newsletter. Someone came back with a newsletter draft, and it was a beautiful draft, but there were more words than maybe were needed for an email draft. Or for an email newsletter. So Anne went back and requested that they go and only include like 100 to 200 words. So yeah, just making sure that at every step you're reminding yourself to be concise. If there is information that you can take away that isn't as crucial, I always like to check myself. Anne, any advice or feedback in that area?
I think one other thing, those are all great suggestions. One other thing to add is if you're wanting, if your call to action is walk with us on run day. Don't just say participate at Old Bills or support us at Old Bills. Like get really specific. If you need volunteers to help put up yard signs around town or something like that, like just be really
Mhm.
specific on what you want from your followers or from your board members or your internal team. Don't assume that, and we'll get into this a little bit more in later in the deck, but don't assume that folks understand what Old Bills is, understand how to donate, or understand or know what you need from them. So I think with the call to action, just being super clear, and that's going to vary depending on what your message is, what your channel is, that kind of thing. But we'll get into that a little bit more in a few slides.
Yes, but that is definitely the question of the hour. I think it's something that we always are working to refine and improve. And I'm sure other marketers are in the same boat. And there's so many ways to do it. Yeah, Carolyn shares a great practice is to ask someone who is outside your org or community to read your messages and see if they know what to do and what you're asking. I love to share stuff with my sister, who is a younger Gen Z, across different age brackets, just to see whether or not that message is actually translating.
Zuri, that's a great example. I also often share with my parents who are not local and don't really have a big comprehensive idea of what Old Bills is. I'll often share a message and ask, hey, is this obvious? Do you know how to get to this link? Would you know how to donate here? And it's a really good gut check when I'm sending out emails to you all for um, to know if what I'm actually saying makes sense to someone who's not as in the weeds on Old Bills on a regular basis. So even a simple invite to the Rubber Ducky Regatta could be made more clear by saying, join us to cheer on our duck at 10 a.m. at Russ Garriman Park when the ducks drop. And something just a little more specific usually gets people in the right place. So thanks for all these awesome examples.
Yeah, these are so good. Okay, on to the next slide. Now we can choose our channels. And as you look at all of these channels, I want to remind you to not be afraid to repeat yourself. Oftentimes, it can feel redundant to be posting across so many different channels and sometimes the same message, but repetition is a really powerful tool. And I always like to think about the Coca-Colas, the Nikes of the world. They are using repetition left and right. And really, it's yeah, really, not everyone is going to see every single email, every single social media post or news stories. Yeah, and people rarely act after hearing something just once. I like to think to my mom, like there's things that she repeats, and I eventually take action, maybe after a couple of repetitions. So yeah, just some psychology and I guess real world experience in that capacity. But now that we have our message and a campaign plan, the next question is, yeah, where do we share? You really don't have to be everywhere all at once. We suggest that you instead focus on channels that are most likely to reach your audience and support those goals. So I like to think of every channel as having a different job to do. Social media can be for visibility and for engagement. This is where people typically go to know your organization or to get updates. And email can serve as a really strong conversion tool. We personally love email here at the foundation, and we found that this is typically where people take action. And your message is going to people who have expressed interest and have been engaged with your organization in some capacity. So there is more context, there's more of a relationship already established. And then website and community channels, those can help to build credibility and reach. Those channels can include local radio, Buck Rail, the newspaper, community calendars, and other local media outlets. These channels can really help you reach new audiences who may not already be following you on social media or who are not yet subscribed to your emails. Yeah, it also helps to build trust. You are across different touch points, and yeah, ultimately it creates trust with your brand. Wonderful. We can go on to the next one. Yeah, Maeve, I use repetition all the time in nonprofit newsletters with you all. I love it. Okay, great. Key tactics to expand your reach. So, our goal here at the Community Foundation is really to help amplify your reach. So, we ask that you please use the Old Bills 2026 hashtag, and please tag us at CF Jackson Hole and across Facebook. We love to see what you're doing, and yeah, we love to share with the community as well. And if you don't tag us, we won't see it. And it's also a great way to get inspiration for posting, for content ideas, and suggested looking at the Old Bills 2025 hashtag for ideas as to what type of content works well, and what we have done in the past. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And yeah, it's always good to have a reference. And yeah, keep things fresh and fun. I encourage you to take advantage of the full marketing mix. As Maeve mentioned, putting up yard signs, even wearing your old bills, hat and t-shirt, and yeah, share the love, spread the word with your friends and family. and yeah, post stories and videos. The sky is the limit. There's so many ways. Wonderful. Thank you, Maeve. Okay. Your messaging can also be broken down into different phases. And this goes back to that question about how do we include the ask? I think depending on, or how do we make that ask clear? Depending on that phase in the timeline, you can tailor you can tailor that. So if you're in the early stages, whether it's awareness, we're participating in old bills. You're really sharing who you are and why your mission matters. And then in between, you can share stories. And this really helps to build connection and connect with your audience. And then you can activate. Join us at Run Day, visit our booth, walk with us. Volunteer with us. Um, Once you've built that trust, once you've created awareness, you can begin to activate. And urgency, that deadline. Yeah, deadlines give people a reason to act today instead of someday. So, yeah, don't be afraid to share those specific dates. And yeah, once again, repetition is your best friend. And don't be afraid to increase frequency over time. And remember that your campaign is a journey. You're taking people through this journey of understanding and participating and connecting. And eventually it's a full cycle. What I loved as an outsider before I was a part of the foundation was seeing the countdowns to old bills. I just loved seeing like 5 days to old bills, 3 days to old bills. It created urgency. And it also reminded me when I should sign up or when I should submit my donations, especially as things get so busy. Wonderful. We can go on to the next one. And here we have a simple 3 email plan. You don't need a complicated distribution strategy to be successful. If you're short on time and resources, this simple 3 email sequence can be incredibly effective, and it can also be adjusted across different channels, so not just email. Like I said, we do use email as one of our main funnels, and yeah, it's always fun to see what's happening on the back end and to see statistics, who has opened what, all the fun stuff. And yeah, the first email would be a kickoff. This can be an announcement of the launch of the giving season and why it matters, a reminder email. This helps you to reinforce your story and invite support from others. And that final push email can help you to create urgency in the final week of the giving season. And we also ask that you please do not send old bill solicitation emails to the nonprofit listserv. So many emails coming through during the giving season. We've talked about strategy and the steps to a successful giving season campaign. But strategy is only a part of the equation. So I'm going to pass it back to Anne, who will talk more about how you can bring that strategy to life.
Thanks, Zuri. So to zoom out just a little bit, I'd encourage you to think about, what are you already doing this summer? What does your organization already have planned? And how can you incorporate old bills into what you're already doing? You don't have to build everything from scratch. You can look at things that are already planned. If you have a board meeting coming up, if you're going to have a booth at the People's Market or the Farmers Market, if you offer weekly or regular programming, what does your old bills presence look like at those various touch points? Remember to connect the dots for your constituents so that they think of you when it comes time to make their old bills gift. One example of this is if your organization hosts summer camps. Maybe you have an Old Bills yard sign visible at your camp drop off and pickup location. Or if you're hosting a booth at the People's Market, you might have some Old Bills stickers or brochures or some of your messaging ready to go when you're talking to folks at that People's Market booth. We have lots of photos in the nonprofit toolkit. There are stories from past years, maybe within your organization, if you're an organization that's been around for a long time. We encourage you to tap into the nostalgia of the 30th anniversary for inspiration. Somebody might remember the first Old Bills within your organization. Use these cool stories and this deep-seated love of our community and your organization to inspire your audience. And of course, don't forget to tap into your network. Board members, volunteers, returning donors, participants in your programs are your biggest ambassadors. So don't hesitate to share stories with them that they can then pass along to folks that they interact with throughout the summer. Next slide, please. Be clear. This is going back to that idea around call to action. So we're big fans of Brene Brown here at the foundation, and she has a quote that clear is kind. Make sure that your call to action is precise in each of your communications. On this slide, you can see some examples of what we mean about be clear. Never assume that people know what to do or what your organization needs from them. Of course, we said earlier, lead with stories, lead with authenticity. And at the end of the day, if there is an ask, make sure you're clear about it. Next slide, please. We've mentioned this a few times, but we can't overstate it. 2/3 of the donations that come in through Old Bills happen after Run Day. So that's the final week of the giving season. And I think that's because Jackson is just a last minute place. But since we have that data, we know that it is important to continue to talk about Old Bills after Run Day. So you might consider having some extra social media posts or an additional email, or using that countdown messaging like Zuri referenced, like 2 days left to give. We every year will have somebody, if not a handful of people, that show up the Monday after the giving season closes trying to donate. And unfortunately, we can't accept those donations. So the urgency window is real. And as much as we want people to give early, we know that the majority of them will give at the last minute. So make sure that you're reminding folks that time is running out. Next slide, please. So we've talked a lot about what to do. Just a few things to keep in mind of what not to do. Some of these are included in our rules and procedures. If you want more detail on what we're talking about here, I would say the two that have been, well, I would say the top three that are sort of like what not to do, and you'll probably get an email from somebody on our staff if you do one of these, just because we get a lot of feedback from the community if these three things happen. Do not send box holder or postal patron mailings. If you don't know what that is, it's like when you get a postcard at your PO box and it doesn't have your name on it, it just says box holder. Those are strictly prohibited during Old Bills. And the reason is why is we want you to communicate with people you already have contact with. So if you wanted to do a mailing and you have a person's email address or you have a person's mailing address and you've been in contact with them before, by all means, feel free to communicate with them. But do not buy a box folder or a postal patron mailing through a mailing house, or else we will have to talk to you about it. And it's not a fun conversation to have, because at that point it's already gone out. So please don't send box holder mailings. And the community thanks you for that. Um, Please do not hold raffles, drawings, or auctions specific to old bills. Don't incentivize people to donate. That's just not allowed. And if you decide to use the shopping cart link, and that is the specific link that is available when we activate the Old Bills giving platform. If you decide to pull your organization's shopping cart link, be sure that you take that off of your social media if you post it there, or off of your website after the giving season. What will happen inevitably if you leave that link active, a donation might come through and then we have to refund that donation to your donor, and it's just not a good look. So the shopping cart links are totally fine to use. Some organizations like to create QR codes that directly link to their organization's shopping cart page on the Community Foundation's Old Bills donation portal. That's totally fine. Just make sure you deactivate those links wherever you've posted them after the giving season. We spend an embarrassing amount of time emailing people after the giving season saying, take down the link, take down the link. So just set a reminder for yourself, on the 18th of September to remove those links from wherever they might be. Now I'm going to pass it back to Maeve, who's going to bring us home.
Yes, and I see we actually have a question in here. Molly, I'll go ahead and just close this up and then we'll leave a little time for questions if that works for you.
Okay.
Thank you. Alrighty. As we were saying, just looking at our 2026 Old Bills, it is our 30th anniversary year, which we are so unbelievably excited about. And Ann and Zuri have provided some really awesome pieces of advice for you to take away into your Old Bills planning. And again, it's clear messaging, consistent posting, a few emails, maybe a video or two, using that Old Bills 2026 hashtag. But any and everything that you do is an awesome way to engage the community. So just a reminder that you don't have to, have a super polished, robust campaign to have an effective and successful Old Bills season. Please reach out to our team if you have any specific questions. Again, we'll leave a little time at the end here for more questions, but our organization, the Community Foundation, is here to support you all and make sure that you have all the resources that you need to have successful Old Bills. Things will be posted up regularly on our website on the nonprofits page under our frequently asked questions section, where you can find the nonprofit toolkit, the brand guidelines, key dates. Everything will be updated there. So that website is really your one-stop shop for everything Old Bills related. And then our staff is always more than happy to answer questions. Just a reminder on a few important dates before we close things up. We have our finance workshop on Tuesday, July 28th. That will be similar to this format, but a little more specific to rules and procedures around like how people can make donations, what types of donations they make, how they can give, why it takes so long for our team to process all of the donations, and more, and then also information on how to access your donation portal so you can see who's giving to your organization. So there'll be some tutorials. We'll have our chief financial officer and our finance officer as well available to answer questions. And then the rest of the dates here you should all be pretty familiar with, but the giving season begins on August 14th, ends on the 18th. We have a booth meeting on the 25th, and run day is September 12th this year. Stay tuned for a little more information. The run is going to start at 8:30 this year. That's different from the 9 a.m. start time that we've had. And then, of course, the fabulous awards party will be in October. Alrighty. Molly, I saw that you had a question, and also feel free to write your questions down in the chat. We can put out some answers to those questions in the nonprofit newsletter next week, for those of you who want to do a deeper dive. But Molly, go ahead and ask away.
Thank you. I had a question about the shopping cart link. So Tumbleweed Creative Arts has a shopping cart link, obviously on its website, to sell tickets. So how does that work if we're selling tickets for shows during Old Bill's season?
Oh, I understand this question here. So when we're referring to our shopping cart, it is an internal tool that we use at the community foundation for folks to give donations. It's not necessarily like a additional like how you could check out for something related to your organization. So you should be able on your website to have multiple links that you link to, and I'd be more than happy to show you that. What we're saying more specifically is that your specific shopping cart where folks give donations to the community foundations through the community foundation's giving portal, which we call our shopping cart, is only open from August 14th at 9 a.m. when we open it to September 18th at 5 p.m. And if you have that link available on your website after that giving season closes, we sometimes see people still try to give through that link. And then on our end, we have to give that donation back to the donor.
Okay.
And it's frustrating for everyone involved because their
Oh.
donation doesn't go through Old Bills.
Okay.
Several of you, yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Molly.
So that's not our shopping cart. Okay, good.
No, I understand that's a
Okay.
confusing linguistic issue on our
Okay.
end. But one thing I did want to note is we get a lot of questions from folks asking about whether or not they can get their specific link to their shopping cart in advance of the Old Bills giving season. That link goes live on the 14th, so we can't get you your link in advance. We can't get our link in advance. So it remains the same year over year. So if you have a link from previous years, it's the same. But I can't pull that link for you now. I can get it to you on the 14th when we get our system to go live. So I know that's a little frustrating because you all have marketing materials that you want to get out the door. But that's just a reminder to make sure you pay attention to that link in future years. Alrighty, other questions
Thank you.
coming through. Of course, Molly. Feel free to raise your hand or enter them in the chat.
Oh, there is a question in the chat, Maeve.
Thank you. Okay, I see. How are booth placement assignments decided? Yes. Okay, so last year we did, in some years we do based by the field of interest that you put in your application. Last year, we made a decision to switch things up and have all of the organizations kind of interdispersed rather than organized by field of interest. It was an experiment. I think we've had every year, there are folks who wish that they were placed in a different location. And we can't unfortunately make everyone happy. So the booth placements are decided by our team once we have a final count of all of the booths after that mandatory booth meeting on August 25th. So I ask that everybody who wants to host a booth attend that meeting because that's how I confirm who is indeed interested in hosting a booth. And once we know final numbers, we'll get a better sense of how we'll be able to organize the booths this year. We have a record number of nonprofits participating this year and also a record number of nonprofits who are interested in hosting a booth. So unfortunately, I can make no promises on how we will organize booths this year, but it is something we are looking into very specifically. I see some other questions coming through in the chat. It looks like Anne and Zuri have both responded to questions that are coming through in the chat. Like I said, again, if you want to raise your hand, if you have any specific questions, or if you have a question related to your specific organization, we'd be more than happy to chat with you outside of this meeting or answer any questions over email. So just a reminder that our team is a resource and we are more than happy to help you out as you start to plan your campaign for this 30th anniversary Old Bills. The critical date slide, absolutely, Bruce. Let me go back to that for you. These important dates, once again, are included in the nonprofit toolkit. There's a PDF that you can download and print out for those of you who like a printed piece of paper. This is also on oldbills.org on our website. On the nonprofits page, you'll see all of these dates. This will continue to be sent out in the nonprofit newsletter. Like Zuri was saying, repetition is great. So I totally employ repetition with you all to make sure that all of the important information is communicated. Thank you so much for joining us. I realize we are at time. I'll hang out here for a couple more minutes in case folks have any additional questions. We are, like I said, more than happy to answer, but thank you all so much for participating. If you have any feedback or questions that you would have liked to have answered, please let me know. We are always trying to make these sessions as useful as possible for you all. So any feedback you have is really helpful for us. So we really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to an awesome Old Bills 2026. And like we said, this is our 30th anniversary year. So we've got a couple little special things up our sleeves that we're really excited about. So stay tuned.